as human beings we don't like is somebody telling us what to do, right? So there
Yeah,
is a
yeah.
psychological resistance we face to somebody else, especially an outsider coming in, and that many times stops us from changing or even asking for help. So how has your work been received? What are some of the challenges that you have faced, and how have you found ways to overcome that?
Those are all excellent questions. And if I don't answer this correctly, it will sound grandiose. I've only had the opportunity to affect certain companies and certain operations, and most of it stemming, as I say, from our experience in aviation and nuclear power generation. But really, it becomes almost universal. And so the times that I think I've had the most, or the people who are doing what I'm doing too, have had the most impact is when you've been able to get to the leadership, the board of directors, especially, and what we call the C-suite, especially in medicine. That's the common term. The CEO, the COO, the CFO, especially, as well as the board, and get them to reorient their thinking into whatever it is they need to take care of that they're not taking care of. And believe me, right now, hospitals all over the world are in a lot of trouble in many different ways, but in the United States, especially, and to a certain extent, our Canadian friends, we are in a bit of disarray in terms of what the heck we're doing in healthcare. Let me talk about that just for a second, and we'll get back on the
Mhm.
mainstream. The reason for a hospital is to serve the community. Matter of fact, they're licensed based on that. And yet, because in this great nonprofit system, there is a profit making group of several different companies that have for profit hospitals and clinics, and that's fine. But the nonprofit group very often are lying to themselves. They say they're nonprofit, and yet they're concerned so much about the bottom line. But when it's positive and they're making a lot of money, what are they doing with that money? They're investing in new buildings and new campus and a citadel over here and over there when they should be fine tuning what they're able to do with what they've got. And I see this illness as part of the constant myopia in American medicine, which is, by the way, not a system. I'm not the one to say that. George Halverson, who used to run a company called Kaiser Permanente, said that we don't have a system of medicine in the United States. We have a great non-system of wonderful people, wonderful parts, great science, great institutions, but it's never been put together. And because we don't have a single payer, and because we have this cacophony of which some people can go bankrupt because they've had medical bills they can't pay, the idiocy of this is also extrapolated to the impact on the psyche of the doctors and the nurses and all the people involved because they've got to keep the doors open, they've got to keep the money flowing, and pretty soon the determination of what needs to be done is a monetary determination and not a medical one. We can change that, not just in the US, but worldwide. But we're going to have to pay attention to. We're the laughing stock of the world in the United States right now in terms of not having a medical system that makes any sense. And it's not that everyone in the rest of the world has a perfect system, but there are a lot of attributes that we could select from almost like a smorgasbord and come up with something that works for the US. But we are so locked up in partisanship that I just don't see it happening anytime soon. And people are dying as a direct result. Now, the reason for getting off in that is because what I was trying to apply and am trying to apply is safety. In other words, if you don't have patient safety, what do you have? If you're going to kill your patient because you got the wrong site surgery, for instance, or you had the wrong medication, and there are 1,000 different variations of this, then you have no quality at all. I used to say to boards, see their eyes go wide open. You may have a quality committee, but you haven't even touched safety. Quality and safety are not the same thing. They're inextricably intertwined, but they are not the same thing. So to get that lesson and to apply it, the first thing that an organization has to do from the very top, and as I say, the board is incredibly important on this, is to try to reorient their thinking to what are the most important elements that you have to bring to the community because you're operating under a license.